Good afternoon. I hope you can all hear me. I'm very happy to join you all. I'm sorry about the echo. I hope despite the echo, you can hear what I'm saying. First of all, let me thank Henry Wang and the Center for China and Globalization for launching this book, and frankly, for providing all the support. And I also want to thank CCG for this wonderful event. I mean, there's been the sheer fact that this book has generated so many thoughtful comments shows that it has been a valuable book. Just this session alone. And I'm sorry I cannot respond fully to all the comments because I know we want to finish at 5 o'clock. And I will try to finish my remarks in 10 minutes or less. But I want to give a structure for my remarks. And I'll use the Marxist or the Hegelian framework: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So what is the thesis? The thesis is that the world of today, the small interdependent world we have today, was created by the West. The West generated globalization, both in the colonial era and in the post-colonial era. And as we know, the West were the strongest promoters of globalization because they thought they would be the number one beneficiary. They were the most successful society, and the world economy opens, they'll benefit. And that's so we must thank the West for gifting globalization to the world. But then there's an antithesis. The antithesis is that the same countries that used to promote globalization have become disillusioned with globalization. And in Europe, there's a reluctance to open up economies. And certainly in the United States today, the US Congress will not pass any free trade. And this is quite remarkable. The West used to promote free trade. Now the West is frightened of free trade. That's the antithesis. So then we come to the synthesis. What is the synthesis? The synthesis is that the biggest beneficiaries of globalization in the world today are the Asian countries. And frankly, that's how we got the 21st century. It's ironic. It's the West push for globalization has woken up Asia and created the Asian 21st century. That's remarkable. But now that we have Asian 21st century, and just to give you one statistic, in terms of purchasing power parity, the top four economies: one, China; number two, United States; number three, India; number four, Japan. Three out of the top four Asia. That's the Asian. So the question is, how do Asia manage the 21st century? And my key point here is that Asians need to take on more responsibility, especially responsibility for maintaining the global multilateral institutions. Because these institutions were created by the West, including the United Nations, World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, but they are all good for. So we in Asia should therefore learn to provide more leadership, which is one reason why I produce to give Asians cultural confidence. I know the word culture came up earlier, but one very important thing is cultural confidence. And in fact, it is this cultural confidence that explains why Asia is launching the world's largest free trade agreement, which many of you refer to, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP. And so it's very important that Asians now feel a sense of responsibility. But this also requires greater cooperation among the Asian countries. And here I'm glad at the beginning, I think Dr. Rong mentioned India. I think India's role is very important. And to be very frank, India is very strong. India has one foot in Asia and one foot in the West. And it is deciding which way to go. And it's a pity that India did not join the RCEP. Because if India had joined the RCEP, India could have also benefited from Asia's growth and success. So I hope that of us, all the 15 members of RCEP, should try to persuade India to come and join. And then the question was raised at the end, what about the rest of Asia? What about West Asia? What about Central Asia? Or even South Asia? I think the answer is that they must come and learn from East, especially from ASEAN, because it was ASEAN that launched the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Without ASEAN, there will be no Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Because, as you know, in Northeast Asia, there's a lot of suspicion among China, Japan, Korea. You cannot negotiate a free trade agreement among these countries. But because ASEAN proposed it, China accepted it, Japan accepted it, South Korea accepted it. And that's the big boost to global economic growth that ASEAN did. So clearly, ASEAN must be regarded as a key player in East Asia. And this is where, when we talk to the rest of Asia about the 21st Asian century, we should also mention ASEAN. It's very important. So I hope that I have some answers to the many questions you have raised. And I also hope that with all the questions that you have all raised, people will see why you need such a book. And I hope that this book will serve as a guide to the Asian 21st century. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Professor Mahbubani, can you answer those questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, I'm very happy that this is an open source. So anybody can read it for free. I want to thank Henry Wang and CCG for making this an open source book. Now, many questions. I'll go down one by one. First question, what role will China play? Well, that's a very big question. To some extent, I answered it in my book, Has China? You can see behind me, English version and Chinese version. And very important that China has very strong signals that it is a supporter of the current global order. And President Xi said this in Davos in January 2017. I was there when he explained why China supports globalization. So therefore, that message must be repeated, because many in the West think that when China becomes number one, it will overturn the order. I don't think it will overturn the order. I think China will keep the current. We have to change here and there, but the fundamental order, we don't need to change. So that's the first big message China can send. And of course, RCEP is a very important way in which China can help. Because China will provide the greatest amount of growth within RCEP. Now, the second was about the. I answered the question about Taiwan, because the Taiwan is just applied, and not to RCEP, to CPTPP. So that's a very different, and we have to wait what happens. Now, on the three blocks, North America, EU, Asia, it's very important that we persuade Europe to be a kind of a middle between North America and East Asia. Because Europe benefits a lot from East Asia's growth. And Europeans believe in multilateral. I mean, Americans, unfortunately, have been more unilateral. Europeans have been multilateral. So Asia and Europe should work together to promote multilateralism. Now, the third question is about India and Japan. Is Japan in decline? I don't think so. Japan will remain a successful society. But Japan is now, to be honest, a very frightened country. We must reduce the level of fear in Japan. We must explain to Japan that it was Japan that started the Asian country by being the first Asian country. So Japan has contributed to the Asian century. But Japan must have confidence in its fellow Asians. As you know, Japan, like India, is torn between the Asia and the West, and it's moved closer to the West. It must move Japan closer back to Asia. Now, the fourth question was about RCEP and Singapore. Singapore will contribute, but Singapore is a very small country. Much more important than Singapore is ASEAN. And ASEAN can provide leadership of the region. And RCEP was not a geopolitical victory by China. It's a geopolitical victory by ASEAN. because ASEAN, and we must explain to the world how important ASEAN is. And finally, on the question of sustainability, that's a very important subject. If Asian countries
Sorry,
are not part of the solution, they become part of the problem. So it's very important that all Asians must contribute to fighting climate change. But here, going back to my very point about how the West started globalization, the West also launched the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of the global warming is also happening because of the Western Industrial Revolution. Cumulatively, the United States has contributed 25% to global stock emissions, Europe 22%, China 13%, India 3%. So why are you asking China and India to do more? You should ask America and Europe to do more, because they still contributed far more to greenhouse gas. So the Asian countries must speak up and tell the Western countries, you must take your share of responsibility also. And you cannot elect leaders like Donald Trump who will walk away from this agreement. So for purely climate change reasons, don't elect Donald Trump. Thank you very much.